Beep beep. Massive deck tech coming through. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And today, David asked me to brew around Warden of the Grove. For 3 mana, this is a 2/2 Hydra that is going to grow by 1 at the beginning of your end step. It's going to get a +1/+1 counter. More importantly, whenever another non-token creature you control enters, it endures X, where X is the number of counters on this creature. And if you're not familiar with Endure, you can either put X +1/+1 counters on this creature that entered, or create an XX white spirit creature token. So you can make your creatures bigger or make more creatures with this. And when David submitted the deck, the idea was to build this in a Stompy shell, which is where I started out. This costs 2 colorless and a green. Mono green Stompy seemed like the very easy point of departure. And for reasons that I'll explain in a second, we are going to be abandoning that idea and doing something else. So, my initial idea was to base this off of other lists that I have already played in the past. And just shout out to my sponsor, Moxfield, here, for keeping all of my jank deck lists around forever. So let's just go on a trip through memory lane real quick. So a month or two ago, I tried out this Surrak Stompy list, which obviously had some problems. The video is entertaining as I lose my mind, but the results overall were not great. And in this video, I was experimenting, what if we don't play the fast artifact mana? What if we shift away from Ancient Tombs to try to play Mana Dorks so that the Exalted buffs our various creatures in combat? And this was not successful. Cards like Orcish Bowmasters and Fury absolutely tore us apart. So that tells me that if I want to brew Green Stompy, I should go back to when the deck had artifact mana, and hence the things like Chalice of the Void and Trinisphere as well. So I dug a little bit further back in my Mox field, back to when Sowing Mycospawn was legal, and I did play something that was trying the Chrome Mox stuff. And I have another similar version prior to Sowing Mycospawn, I think, that had like the Lotus Petals and stuff in here in place of the Mana Dorks. And something like this was going to be my starting point for brewing. I think I picked the other list, but here's the thing that I realized when I started doing my brewing. The creature count in this deck was 21. Now let's go back to this guy for a minute. Warden of the Grove specifically wants us to continue to play creatures. And the problem with a deck that looked like this one was that there were going to be so many cards in the deck that weren't actually going to trigger its abilities. And when I started kind of doing a little bit of like back of the napkin math for like, okay, how often am I going to trigger this with 20 creatures? It wasn't looking good. All of the Trinispheres, Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, Malevolent Rumble, Once Upon a Time, Green Sun Zenith, all that sort of stuff wasn't immediately going to trigger this, although I guess the Green Sun would eventually. And the non-token creature part was relevant for things like Malevolent Rumble. So it was at this point that I went back to the drawing board, just completely scrapped the idea of being an Ancient Tomb Stompy deck, and went, okay, how do I otherwise maximize this card? And so while I started brewing around the 2 colorless and 1 green cost, I ended up finishing the brew by focusing on the +1/+1 counters. Because we're enduring X, where X is the number of counters on this creature, if we can increase the number of counters on this creature somehow, we can actually scale up all of our creatures for the rest of the game. And this is where I shifted to the green-white energy shell that we've been messing around with a little bit on the channel. Because we have cards like Scythecat Cub and Bristly Bill that can put a bunch of extra counters on our good friend Warden of the Grove. Warden of the Grove. and we can potentially make our slightly overcosted card uncounterable. And the creature count of this deck ended up being 31, about 10 more than what we were working with if we are going to end up in an Ancient Tomb shell. Meaning that after I play my Warden of the Grove, it is very likely that I can continue to play creatures afterwards, especially if I hit something like Bright Glass Gearhulk that can just be 3 separate bodies. So our Gearhulk, our Guide of Souls, and our Ocelot Pride that we probably end up picking up from this can all enter with additional +1/+1 counters. So we do have the possibility of playing Warden of the Grove on turn 2 if we draw a Noble Hierarch or a Green Sun or a Lotus Petal. The Green Sun can get a Singleton Dryad Arbor to focus as ramp. Otherwise, this is largely intended as Bright Glass Gearhulk number 3 for the endgame that can just be a little bit more flexible. I am not actually sure if this is better than playing one more Bristly Bill or one more Gearhulk or one more Springheart Nantucko. I don't know, but I think as a singleton, it is probably fine to try out. Previous versions of this deck have run closer to 3 or 4 copies of Wasteland. I'm just going to keep one around today. I'm trying to squeeze in that Dryad Arbor, trying to slightly increase the number of fetch lands in the deck, that sort of stuff, so that we optimize a little bit more for Scythecat Cub. We are going to be bad against combo, I think, playing a deck that looks like this, but I think that has largely been a concession that I was willing to make in playing these energy decks. You have very, very powerful openers. You have the generically powerful white removal, potentially more of that in the post-sideboard games. But for the games that we happen to be combo, we will be like fully reliant on the cards in the sideboard here. I'm going one more Force of Vigor than normal in respect of just answering an Urza's Saga and a Blood Moon at the same time. That's something that is brand new to the metagame, so people are messing around with that. We'll see how good it actually ends up being in practice. So that was a really long deck tech, but I wanted to talk about my thought process here before someone in the comments was just like, bro, you just like stuck Warden of the Grove into an energy deck that's required no work. Well, actually, a ton of thought went into making this work, but sometimes that is not always clear from the deck list that you are just handed at the beginning of the day. So with that being said, folks, you need your Scythecat Cubs, your Bristling Bills, maybe your Chocobos when the Final Fantasy set comes out, and it'll be live by the time this video hits, even for my early access YouTube members. Check out my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. They're great. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order. You always get free shipping. Their customer service is top-notch. And if you're going to Vegas, look for this purple banner. There will be great in-person deals on like HP, MP cards that don't necessarily go up on their website. Plus, you can stop by to get my stickers and tokens as well. All right, let's battle. Alrighty. Opening hand is fine. I think this is actually a very intricate hand. There's a lot of different ways that you could play this out. Like, you could just slam Voice of Victory on 1 to make it so your stuff is always uncounterable. Like, you could hide this Lotus Petal. I think I am just playing both of these out immediately in case something weird like a Trinisphere happens, or in case I have 2 Swords to Plowshares on turn 1 for some reason. But I think turn 2 just ends up being Warden of the Grove around a Daze into Voice of Victory that endures. Am I just gonna fucking die to oops on turn 1? I have my get this shit out of my format rant ready. Alright, resolves. Alright, opponent has name Green Sun. I have basically no agency in this game. I'm either dead or not. Like, my deck that seeks to accumulate advantage over time is not going to be favored here in any capacity. I am going to just play out the Ocelot Pride. If I win this game, it is because my opponent does not have it. Just fully. I will put the counters on, yes. So notably, I am putting 0 counters on that creature because the Warden does not have its initial +1/+1 counter yet. We got second land drop from the opponent. That's an actual land. Hey, maybe we're not actually playing against oops. Bad lands? Like a Wishclaw Talisman, maybe? Oh, no, this is Wayfarer. Okay, cool. Yeah. Then towards this, I should have played Voice of Victory first on the off chance that this is a Grixis deck. And Force of Will was on the table there. We will endure. I will wasteland your Badlands. Crash in for 4 initial damage. Then I'm going to scale up my creature and make a cat. And as a reminder, the tokens that enter are not actually enduring. So my hand is in play. Alright, looks like my opponent wants to do Bowmaster Crimes. You may absolutely play a sorcery speed Bowmaster and kill Ocelot Pride. I accept. But I have a bunch of just chonky creatures here that I can send in with. So my normal play pattern with this card is just put it on something. But I can just play this as a 3/3. Very strange. I think we're still bestowing. Making copies of Warden of the Grove is hilarious. Send it, send it. We're fine sending the cat in as well. We will mobilize. And this is a lot of damage. Opponent just takes it all. And I will continue to grow my Warden. Is now a 6/6. So we want to dodge land drop into Goyf here. There's land drop. There's Wasteland. There's a Fatal Push, which my opponent has to do on their turn. And sending in with an Orc Army token. Sure. I will just take that one. So if my opponent blocks Voice of Victory, they are taking 1, 2, 3, and 4. So all I need to do is bestow here to generate 1 additional point of power somewhere, and they die. That was a very aggressive Orc Army token attack. That was most certainly wrong at 5 life. Alright, and this is lethal damage. I liked the part where my opponent wasn't actually playing Oops All Spells. So we saw Gyre Reach Sanitarium as a flex slot land in my opponent's deck. There could be varying degrees of unfair that they are with that. But I'm going to behave as if we are playing against a mid-range deck here. And probably go Endurances in, Paths in. I don't think I'm going to mess around with Ghost Vacuum too. Hedging against Orcish Bowmasters, I should consider boarding out some number of X1 creatures. I think these are still largely part of the mana base, especially if I board up a bunch of 3-drops. I don't think I can just trim them. I think I'm going to go these out, though. I think those become Endurances. I think Green Sun becomes the last Endurance. I think a Static Prison becomes a Path. Without the Green Sun, I'm comfortable cutting a mana source. Can I cut a second? Unsure. I'm going to try to get away with cutting a second and keep the Lotus Petal. Hey, this has 3 initial land drops here. This is great. I can decide whether or not I want to play the game on full basics or whether I want to get value out of a Surveil land. Did I keep all 4 basics in the deck? I did. Got a Path as my draw, and my opponent took Endurance. I am going to leave myself the flexibility of casting Path immediately off of basics and potentially getting a Surveil land. Second Badlands here. Oh, we have gone deep. If we go to a game 3, I will probably be looking at keeping the Static Prison in the deck. I think I'm going to go first Surveil land. Now, that doesn't fit my curve very well. I'm just going to go ahead and send that to the graveyard. All. Okay. Now, since I am already wastelandable, I think I'm going to just go for a Savannah, fetch around something like an opposition agent here, and try to constrain my opponent a little bit with Voice of Victory. All right, opponent. This is your moment. Play your Hymn to Turok, pop off hard. I won't even be mad. Waste Not is such a sweet card. For those of you who weren't. I was about to say around a couple years back, and then I realized this was M15 and looked down at what year it is now. Ouch. This was a community designed card, which is pretty sweet. Oh no, opponent. That's not really what you want to be doing here. I think I need to hold up Path to Exile in case my opponent does something wild, like a wheel effect. Like that, triggering Waste Not and Bowmasters at the same time would be pretty disastrous. I really want to guarantee this next turn, but I think it is, and I'm just going to do lazy sequencing. Probably correct to just play out another one of these and have Path available. I could even like get saucy and Path a token here as mana ramp, but I think that is getting lost in the sauce. Oh, we've got a Wasteland. That I think awkwardly means that I just fire this off now to stay mana efficient. Again, it's awkward if my opponent just slams a Goyf right here, but I don't know if we're Goyfing if we're doing this. All right, there's one Fatal Push, and that's just my opponent's turn. Very nice. There's Hierarch. I will get my attack in and still have a Swords available. This is 4 incoming damage with maybe a Gear Hulk next turn. And I'll sacrifice those tokens. I have not used the Lotus Petal this game. Hate that. You got it. So I remember like turn 1 where I was talking about potentially playing the entire game on basics. I don't know why we're doing anything in the pre-combat main phase while I still have mana floating. Okay, Voice of Victory is down. My opponent is live to play things on my turn. I will just continue to play copies of Voice of Victory until morale improves. Notably, my opponent's Waste Not has generated 0 card advantage. It has just been a card that my opponent played out to literal 0 effect. Oh, that's weird. That's very weird. We're going to get in there. I could Boseiju this if I wanted. I think it is just better to play this as a land drop in respect of any white producing land. So basically any land other than forest in my deck producing Bright Glass Gear Hulk next turn. But that's a very weird draw there. Like if the Noble Hierarch, for example, just gets removed, then it is potentially better to just have stopped this. Yeah. All right. There we go. I have the same hand. Wild. All right, so that's draw, zombie. Another Wasteland. You've got it. I'm knocked off of Gear Hulk for the 3rd time. That's Wasteland number 3. Oh god. All right. We've got draw, land, zombie. Another Waste Not. So that was not actually very bad for me. Like, my opponent took a lot of game actions, but like the ending board is not all that strong. So this is a 2/4 on attack. If my opponent hypothetically throws all of the creatures in front of it, I swords a zombie and clear their board. Or they might end up just taking 2 and blocking the 1/1s. I don't really want to cast Swords to Plowshares. And I've already used Lush Portico. I think I'll attack anyway. We'll do our whole mobilize and exalted thing. Okay, so my opponent double blocks. I will go ahead and just swords a zombie. Get my opponent to 6, take out the other zombie for free, and pass the turn with voice still being a problem. I don't get to deploy endurance immediately, which is why I'm not even sure if attacking there is correct. Ooh, that's just a land drop for my opponent. The Delve spell? Play like a Tombstalker? Oh, there was another Goyf that I missed. It was just, I think, literally off screen there. Okay, that makes my endurance a better line than what I had realized, obviously. Resolves. I think they know about my Gear Hulk from earlier in the game. Path to Exile is, I think, a very reasonable name from my opponent. Now I get to play this endurance, nuke my opponent's graveyard, make this Goyf way worse. Ooh. I think this game is close enough to over that I just let them have a 1/2 Nether Goyf and send in. Weird spot though. My endurance play on my own turn was unquestionably correct. Note that my opponent has a fetch land, so they can't make this a 2-power creature, but it's still not enough to kill Voice of Victory. Good day to pie. Reasonable. Opponent's out there having fun, and I respect that. Oh, sorry, that was a Cabal Therapy cast from Graveyard. It ends up in exile there. That means that I am sending in 5 damage here. My opponent can fetch and then successfully block a warrior token and go to 1. Doesn't seem like they had another surveil land there. The opponent is at 1, facing down a Voice of Victory that is 3 bodies in 1. So, don't goif me? They did not goif me. Fantastic. I could have played a little bit tighter there. GG's regardless. Waste Not is such a sweet card, and I am glad that my opponent got to do the thing a little bit with their double Burning Inquiry. But I think this is a great example of brewing around a card that just doesn't end up being strong enough, which is something we see a lot on this channel. My opponent did the thing with 2 different Burning Inquiries and still did not end up winning the game. I think the Waste Knots drew them 4 or 5 cards. Like, they had the potential to do things, but like their Waste Knots were drawing them things like more Burning Inquiries, which just kind of randomly looted through their cards, and it did not pay off hard enough. Whereas, like, if these are just Barrow-Goyfs, I just, like, very handily lose. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's all coming together. Like, here is our potential Warden of the Grove Guide of Souls synergy happening. Got a Tundra. Yeah, this is a Nadu deck. So this is super unfortunate. I can hold up Savannah and play around a turn 2 kill, or I can actually advance my own gameplay and die sometimes. I think I am going to hold up the mana. I'm just very unhappy about it. Since this land is basic forest, I don't have the easy possibility of just Guide of Souls into Guide of Souls here. Alright, lander up 2. Yeah, and now I just gave my opponent a free time walk because I needed to hold up mana. So we'll now hold it up the next turn for Nadu coming down. And hopefully not get Force of Willed out of existence. Opponent can grab a Surveil land at end of turn. Select their draws a little bit. Oh, that does not make me feel the warm and fuzzies. That's getting rid of Daze, which potentially means that they already have Counterspell backup for whatever it is they're going to do. Alright, we've got a Nomads. Nomads with a Shuko. And I am not attacking this side of the combo, I don't think. The issue now is that if my opponent puts Nadu or Cephalid Illusionist into play, the Nomads means that they could Nadu 4 times in response or mill their entire deck as soon as Cephalid Illusionist is in play. So it might be, well, I don't want to attack this, I just have to attack this or I end up losing. I don't have something like Prismatic Ending to answer the Shuko, unfortunately. So I guess this is a here's hoping we don't die situation. I think I'm going to maximize my energy. So if I Guide of Souls and then Spring Heart, I get 2 energy. If I Spring Heart, Landfall, Guide of Souls, I also get 2 energy, but I have 1 more Deuter in play. Okay. All this potentially gets Dazeable. I think I'm just going to die. And then I will Guide of Souls afterwards. Like, I leave up another Swords as a bluff, but I think my opponent just calls that every time. So I will do Disgusting Things next turn if I don't just die. Yeah, so my single Swords to Plowshares would not have disrupted this. Oh, can you just not win the game? That's really cool. Love that for me. That might mean that my opponent has, like, Oracle in hand, which I can't interact with. So the line becomes find interaction. Yeah. Yet that's interaction. And that's interaction around a daze even. Cool. All of these are going in for sure. Yes, I'm going to pay I will make a Guide of Souls fly, and my opponent's at 14. There is a Narcomoeba. Alright. And now the combo is happening, and I am presumably dead. Okay, so my opponent needed the last body here so that they could dread return their Thassa's Oracle. And there it is. Just take a quick look at this, see if there's anything interesting. No Teferi here. We've got Nadu, we've got Tamiyo. Alright, cool. So I've got a bunch of ways that I can approach this here. Like, I have various ways to interact with additional creatures or interact with Shuko. I think I always want the paths. I think this is a time where we replace one beater with another beater that has slightly more utility. I think I can win this game if the game goes long without Gear Hulk. So I maybe just turn Gear Hulk into something that interacts with Shuko in some capacity. I think I'm going to pick the one that triggers Guide of Souls. I could go deeper from here with things like Force of Vigor, but I still need 3 cuts, so I think something like this is going to be about right. Let's go Trim. Path is super awkward. I still think I need it, but it accelerates my opponent towards Nadu. Do something like Trim, Trim, Trim. This has a piece of interaction, a little bit of ramp, a Scythecat Cub, without a fetch land, awkwardly, though. I still think it is going to be a keep, but there are real downsides to the monocolored lands in this deck, which is part of the reason why I got rid of the wastelands that weren't even producing a single color. I can still Scythecat Cub into land drop next turn, and Caracas has utility versus Nadu. So it's not like I am doing nothing by having the Caracas in the deck. We've got a Ponder. Hey, Boseiju is a fine pickup. Don't daze me, please. Nice. I think I just make a non-Caracas land drop here. Just don't show that to my opponent until I have to. And we can potentially make copies of Scythecat Cub for fun and profit. My opponent has lost connection. Okay, they're back. That is a prismatic ending. This means my next turn is potentially going to be significantly less good. The Uber Hierarch. I could just make an extra noble hierarch here, rather than bestow another one of these immediately. I think I'm going to do that. So we will go land drop, A2. That makes it easier to bestow the next one. And if my opponent just taps out for Nadu, I can potentially static prison it or Caracas it, depending on what it seems like is better to do. I can just fully die here to land drop Nomad, Cephalid Illusionist, or equivalent. Not today, though. There's some absolutely unhinged sound coming from my living room. I think my girlfriend has put on cat TV for the cats, and some bird is absolutely losing its fucking mind, chirping. Alright, there is Nomads. There is Tamiyo. I hate that choice of removal. The Dryad Arbor. This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation where I can either remove the combo piece or remove the card advantage, and both potentially end up beating me. I think I'm going to static prison Nomads and then just Caracas bounce Tamiyo immediately. So I am fine to go ahead and bestow again. Caracas. I am always bouncing. This is an attack for 4, or I can make a new hierarch. I think I just attack here. Send in for 4. Notably, this is a 4/5, so it can go in versus something like a Nadu. Again, though, we have Caracas for Nadu. So opponent has Brainstorm, but did not play Tamiyo prior to the Brainstorm in an attempt to just immediately flip the Planeswalker. I'm not saying that is a mistake. That is a thing they could have done, but they might just be wanting to shuffle away that card and attempt to either get their combo or try to deal with this bullshit. Because what I am doing now does not win the game quickly, but every land drop becomes increasingly scarier over time. Like when I make my next land drop, I can funnel these 4 mana into just creating more and more noble hierarchs. Yes. What is that for? Okay, that's what that's for. I mean, but like, what is that for in the matchup? I think Needle does not seem very good against my deck. Like, I have a Singleton Wasteland, although they might not know that. Okay. I'll pay for this for now. Lush Portico is probably better than Dryad Arbor. That is a medium power level draw. That ambushes a Tameo. I think I will keep it. I will make a Hierarch. I will make a Hierarch. And I think I'm going to give my opponent the opportunity to block with Tameo. Maybe that's not true. Oh, right. This is off. Yeah, this is so much damage. This is 4 Noble Hierarch triggers. Like, I could guaranteed get in for 2 damage, or I can chonk my opponent for 6. I like that better. We can fully die to both combo pieces being deployed this turn. I don't so much care about Tameo turning into a Planeswalker. The Urza Saga is slightly annoying. You have another land drop. Excuse me. The Tameo Clue token does grow the Urza's Saga token. And opponent is passing the turn with a bunch of mana and options available to them. I know that I am getting Endurance here. I know that I am paying for Static Prison. My opponent gets their Nomads back next turn. At some point, it becomes better to just make Insect tokens for the last couple of points of damage. I think I have enough Noble Hierarchs here. No, I want to force 1 block here, right? Because I would like to make this a lethal attack to make this obligatory. So we will go green and 1 with this. This is 2 plus 5, 7. So I will go ahead and do this again. And I will still have Endurance available. Triggers. Yeah, so we know this Saga thing is coming. Opponent saves the life. So now Shuko is guaranteed. And we just see if my opponent, between their draw step and clue, and maybe other clue as well, is able to put together a combo that beats me. I hate that they're just floating mana. That is a Nadu. So my opponent gets 4 activations immediately. I am probably dead to that. I am going to just play this out now before my opponent has extra looks at Force of Will. And then F6. Now I'm fully just in danger of dying to fair blockers and blue and white based card advantage. There's a Force of Will backing up my opponent's stuff. There's multiple removal spells. Not great for me. My opponent can Prismatic Ending the Static Prison and then be able to draw another entire set of cards on my turn. And now I just decide how long I want to sit through this before conceding. Because it's not like I am presenting lethal here. No, okay, I am just going to die with Force of Will back up here. So even if I save the Endurance, I am just donezo. Okay, we don't sit through this anymore on this channel. GG's. If this Lotus Petal is a land, we have a medium hand. I don't think I keep this one. Hell yeah. I will keep this one. I am just going to get rid of the fetch land here and just keep the lands that don't cost me life. Alright, we're on a clock here. I think I'm going to just maximize my mana output for next turn, so that I have the potential of double Guide of Souls and then hold up Swords to Plowshares for something like a Glaring Fleshraker. We've got the Grim Monolith. There is also the timeline where I don't hold up Swords to Plowshares and I just play Guide of Souls into Voice of Victory, and then I have double Guide of Souls plus Voice of Victory double triggering. That might just be better. And I just accept that sometimes I lose out to Glaring Fleshraker specifically. I am more likely to lose to something like the One Ring or Mystic Forge or Karn than Glaring Fleshraker specifically in the short term. So my opponent did not have 4 mana last turn, which they do now. Well, fuck me. They don't have that much mana right now, though. And famous last words, I guess. So this untaps Monolith. My opponent now has 5 mana plus whatever else they can put together with Fleshraker. Oh boy. My opponent has 1 card left, though, so unless the last card is a banger, this is probably fine. The last card was not a banger. I still take a lot of damage. Like, I took 7 this turn. It's still quite good. Oh, shit. Alright, so, yeah, trigger, yield to all of those. I am the beatdown here. So, in respect of being the beatdown, we're just going to fetch the Dryad Arbor, go to combat, send these in, trigger Voice of Victory. I will absolutely pay you fly. I will absolutely pay you fly. My opponent, takes 7? And then we are going to do the Ocelot Pride thing. We're absolutely going to have the City's Blessing. We're going to double up. We end up at 10 energy, 27 life, and we just need to dodge this being something like the One Ring, which we did. I'm just going to assume that this is lethal. Yeah, you can untap that. Go to Punchies. Punchies. I don't need to attack with the 0 power creature. We're going to get a few triggers here. We're going to say yes and make Ocelot Pride fly. Then we are going to say yes and make the other Guide of Souls fly. And I'll save this land drop in case we do a landfall thing in a minute if my opponent is not just dead. They've got a bunch of Eldrazi spawns. This might not kill them. I have 3, 6, 9, 12 in the air. This is turn 4, by the way. This is an insane hand on my end. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14. That leaves my opponent at 1, I think. All right. 2. They have a single Eldrazi spawn token left. That wasn't the One Ring. So we win in very impressive fashion. Now this is where these Collector Oof Force of Vigor type cards pop off pretty hard, and these 4 cards should probably be in consideration as well. I want to be low to the ground here. I think Gear Hulk is out. Lotus Petal stays for sure. Accelerating to Green Sun for X equals 2 or turn 1 Collector Oof are very, very good. So then there's some question of, like, do I want Voice of Victory to keep my opponent from casting Kozilek's Command on my own turn? Do I want the Landfall Duders? I can try to trim some white cards to make it more likely that I can always pitch cast Force of Vigor. That might be my biggest consideration. That means we keep the Wardens. There's also this. It's fine. I don't know that I love it on the draw. I might play it anyway. There's 27 creatures, which is still enough for Warden of the Grove to be reasonable. It is possible, though, that Warden of the Grove... I'm going to believe in this hand. That Warden of the Grove is worse than Voice of Victory, and that playing a 2-drop versus a 3-drop is a bigger difference than the green pitch card for Force of Vigor. Laner Nexus, Manifold Key. Don't need to Force of Vigor that. Alright, cool. I did hit the second land drop. I think I'm going to say that mana is the most important thing here. And go Hierarch. This might just be a moment to blow up this land. Like, the rest of my hand here is very strong. Get rid of Scythecat Cub. The Manifold Key itself is not very good. Monolith is good. Hopefully they don't do anything with it right now, though, because if they don't do anything with it right now and I just get to drop Oof, that is superb. So we will pick up another Savannah, drop a Guide of Souls. Hope one of those 2 cards in hand is not Dismember. It's not. Cool. So now hopefully blowing up Urza Saga combined with shutting this off just leads to me taking over the game. And I think I am interested in copies of Collector Oof here. So let's fetch Savannah. Okay, and that's just good enough for my opponent to concede. I think it could have been very, very easy for that match to go south here. If my opponent has a 1 ring in the first game, it's very, very bad. If they, turn 1 play a 4-drop, my Collector Oof might be slow in coming down here. But we are positive on the scoreboard. All right, we're probably playing against Oops all spells, and we're probably going to lose. I'm going to keep my hand, hoping that they aren't playing Oops. Hey! This is fine. The hand definitely loses some amount of impact without the Guide of Souls here. which is, I assume, what I am losing. Yes. Hey. We've lucked out twice. Opponent was not playing Oops today, and I redrew a 1-drop. I imagine that they are still going to be playing combo in some capacity. Second basic swamp, though. What are we looking at here? Mono Black Reanimator? Alright, Dark Ritual. Yeah, it looks like Mono Black Reanimator. Alright, so we lose to a different graveyard-based combo, but I did at least get to cast 1 card instead of 0 cards. It's Grizzlebrand, and Animate Dead for Grizzlebrand. That doesn't cost life, so Grizzlebrand is free to go wild. And I think once the second creature hits play, I am not live this game anymore. Like, my hand isn't good. I could top deck a single Swords to Plowshares effect and be back in it. I can technically both Seiju the Animate Dead as of right now if my opponent doesn't hit a second creature, but they have 15 cards in hand. Alright, more mana. Huddle. Oh, we've got this in game 1. I was expecting this in post-sideboard games. I mean, that's fine. That's a way to win now. Alright, Unmask. Targeting me. So coast is clear. Another Unmask. By Bill. An Animate Dead on Bristly Bill. Looks like I'm not dying immediately. Reanimate. Opponent has a landfall deck going now. So I guess we are Osageoing the Grizzlebrand Animate Dead. I could do this when my opponent attacks. It doesn't super matter. Like, the landfall is going to happen either way. This way they can't pay. But my opponent gets a Surveil out of it this way. I don't think the Surveil is all that valuable. So my opponent has 7 cards, 3 mana, probably a 4th after a land drop, maybe more after Ritual mana. I can just die to Chain of Smog nonsense. I have no real cards here. I can get a Horizon Canopy redraw. I think I am very unlikely to win this one. The Grizzlebrand is also just back in graveyard if there is yet another Animate Dead. Caracas, I guess, does some kind of neat things. Right, that is Reanimate. Targeting Guide of Souls. So now my opponent has my deck in play. The land drops now produce a lot of energy. And my opponent has 2 different sources of life gain as well, meaning that they're unlikely to just die immediately. 5 life, 1 energy when that's all said and done. 3 mana. Alright, yeah, we're just on casting Spirit Guides for energy. It'll work. I think at this point I just lose to the Fair Engine. And unless I want to play towards timing my opponent out, I think it's fine to just concede here. Okay, I would like Graveyard Hate and White Removal. I don't think I am going to mess around with Deafening Silence or Collector Oof here. I think I'm going to go Voice of Victory out here, again, in respect of the green count. I think I'm going to try to make my deck leaner by getting rid of some of the more expensive stuff, and this probably means trimming 2 Wardens. I think I need to keep the rest of the white cards. This is an interactive hand that does not cast my spells that follow up this Guide of Souls. I don't think I like this. An ETB tapped land. That's a little rough. So what does this look like? Turn 1, Lotus Petal, Noble Hierarch, tapped land. Turn 2, I have 2 mana. That's a Scythecat Cub with nothing to back it up, or Ocelot Pride plus Swords. This is not very good. This'll do. Savannah Hierarch plus bonus land and 2 endurances. The plan is just hard cast them. And I can pitch cast in an absolute emergency. But I really don't want to do that. Alright, Mana Dork. We've got Delta and Fetch. Resolves. Endurance would be Savage. Is what I would name if I was in the opponent's spot. So I think it is very likely I lose both of these here. I kept both to play around Thoughtseize and got punished by Cabal Therapy. Hey, that's not the worst. I will send in for 1. I will vacuum that Cabal Therapy out of graveyard if my opponent does not do something scarier. Alright. Goodbye, Therapy. I'm going to hold that. I think you could even make an argument that I don't attack, so I can hold up both Boseiju and Caracas activation. I might need to be just a little greedier than that. So my primary issue here is that I can still absolutely just lose to Chain of Smog combo. I got rid of the swords. I have nothing that interacts with that. Wear down. Sure. I think on the way out I'm going to remove an endurance from my graveyard. That's not the worst. 1 damage. 15. Mortuary. Keeping the card. We've got the Entomb. I don't remember the exact words on this card. Ward of Sacrifice, 3 non-land permanents. That's very good versus both my Caracas and swords. You got it. It wasn't Animate Dead, unfortunately. Okay. Really need like some Ocelot Guide of Souls nonsense here to produce the permanents that I need. I mean, luckily this is a 3-turn clock, but position here is obviously not great. 9 life is a lot. That's fine. I am going to swords that. Bouncing this is probably as good as fully removing it. I guess the swords is a problem, huh? That makes it harder for me to actually answer this. Those were bricks. I think I am dead to that now. GG, I guess. Alright. So I'm thinking about whether or not I'm playing Noble Hierarch on 1 or Ocelot Pride on 1. If one of these eats a removal spell, I actually want it to be Ocelot Pride, because I kind of need my mana. I think I am going to play Ocelot Pride as the bait spell for the Fatal Pushes, Lightning Bolts, Prismatic Endings of the world. Even though this means that I don't have 3 mana on turn 2 for this plus this. I'm just going to value this Noble Hierarch very highly. And I am successful. So now this can be Surveil Land plus Mana Dork, and if my opponent does not impact either one of my lands or this Hierarch, I can play a Gear Hulk next turn and tutor up fun things. Yeah. Alright, passing the turn. Lush Portico. That is a medium card. I think I'm going to say no to that. It's fine. I think I'm just going to go ahead and go big here. Green, green. White, white for Gear Hulk. I am going to pick up... I think my board's good enough that I just take the immediacy and don't give this a chance to untap. I just have like Guide of Souls, Springheart Nantucko on Brightglass Gear Hulk coming. I don't think I need to like try to get like Guide of Souls plus Ocelot Pride there. I would like to get above 21 life if possible. Green Sun's fine. That'll be a new Elvish Reclaimer. We'll pay for this. It's a new Brightglass Gear Hulk. That is fine and all. Am I attacking for 5 via Bestow? Or 6 via Bestow, rather? No, I think I'm just going to attack for 5, see if a Swords to Plowshares effect happens immediately. We get Dryad Arbor as a land drop here. I think that is worse than getting my setup going. I want the bonus energy here because of Static Prison. Now I don't have easy access to flying. It is unfortunate. There's not a natural Dark Depths. These are 1/2s currently. There's Ocelot Pride. If I prevent this for now, how am I beating my opponent getting the 20/20? I just have that one Static Prison. None of this stuff flies. It might just be Gear Hulk in my deck to increase the chance that I draw a Swords, but these are potentially going to be active as well. Hit for 5. I'm going to hold back this extra body so I don't take chip damage from these in case one or more of them attacks. I am at 21 exactly, which is a really big deal. I think I am just getting 2 Guide of Souls here. And also potentially draw something like Caracas. There's Dark Depths. There's Flagstones. Looks like opponent is chilling. So I have to sacrifice this now. I don't have energy. Play Guide of Souls. Bestowing is a thing. I have exactly 4 mana. I think I am bestowing here. Playing new Guide of Souls. Yield to all of these. Dropping land drop. Can't pay. Make a friend. Then do Ocelot Pride. I've got the city's blessing now. Not going to take any attacks this turn. Then I do the Ocelot Pride thing, which will also copy the insect token. My opponent will make their 20/20. And then I try to either go for lethal next turn or gain north of 20 life next turn. Which sounds kind of crazy, but might be possible. I wonder if I was supposed to bestow onto Bright Glass Gearhulk so that land drops turn into another Guide of Souls Ocelot Pride. I think that's correct. Alright, I'm at 12. I don't know, land drops turning into Guide of Souls to make more things flying is also like super, super relevant. Alright, another green sun. Okay, we're not removing that. So Noble Hierarch triggers. Feels like lethal in the air. And minus you. Okay, Guide of Souls ones go on bottom. Voice of Victory triggers. Gets me more energy. So these have First Strike and Trample. I am also going back above 20 life. I think that means I am protecting my Ocelot Pride, which has lifelink, and one of my Guide of Souls. So I gain that bonus energy. Sorry, that bonus life at end of turn. We'll just do the one that has more power. And we'll let my opponent figure this out. I think we potentially have blocks now. A Surveil land. Who does Ocelot? Does taking out Ocelot Pride fuck me up? Guide of Souls instead. Opponent goes to 7 initially, then 1. I am at 21. Don't have a Guide of Souls in play. Hopefully this is fine. And we do put the win on the board. There was probably a better way to do that, but I absolutely was not going to sit there and do that math. Alright, Path to Exile, good. Endurance to incidentally clear out graveyards, good. I'm kind of frustrated that the matchups that we are playing are such that I really need to be bringing in Endurance, and the natural thing to cut is Warden of the Grove. But this very specifically is a reach creature for blocking Merit Lage, and also shrinks the potential 3/4 blockers on the other side of the field. I don't super need Voice of Victory. Those can become the Endurances. I'm not going to cut all of the Wardens here. I'm going to leave at least one. I think that is what's happening, is I am doing one. This doesn't interact with my opponent's stuff, but I can just play a Scythecat Cub on turn 1 and then fetch on turn 2 and be a very strong landfall hand. I think I am fine with that. Reclaimer is obviously great. Ooh, multiple fetch lands. Alright, Scythecat Cub kind of fucks. Singleton Lotus Petal is going to do some work here. I don't even know if I'm going to play out the Guide of Souls, despite the fact that going to 21 is really important. If I draw a 1-drop, I will certainly play Guide of Souls. But otherwise, being mana efficient and just dropping Bristly Bill immediately might be too good. I could Guide of Souls and get Dryad Arbor, and like use that to go to 21. Alright, what is my opponent thinking about in attack step? Ooh. Yeah, I think I'm down with that. So land drop, trigger, fetch, Savannah, trigger, go to punchies, send in for 4. Opponent takes 4. Then I'm going to drop Guide of Souls and leave open Path to Exile. And when my opponent fetches, I think I just path this out of the way. Ooh, no. Just another land drop and passing the turn. That's fine. So, Bristly Bill. Let's gain some energy. Let's go land drop. And I don't think I want to set it up so my opponent gets to get absolute maximum value by junking Scythecat Cub. So I think I'm just going to split these between creatures. Fetch. Get Savannah. Now I think I will put... Oh, fuck, I stacked those in the wrong order. Oops. That's fine, I miss out on some counters here. And that, I have already played my land. Send on in. Could have a little more damage here. Opponent is at 6. They activate Reclaimer. That is just a Yavimaya, in which case think I'm just going to path this. My opponent can't just play Dark Depths and Stage from hand here, or it goes fine. There is a Stage. At 19 life, Gearhulk puts me to 20 exactly. Oh, that's good. Let's go ahead and... Oh, no, I should have fucking held that. That works on lands. Let's just split these over all of my different bodies here. I think path means that I am fine, but I did not play this game very well. Just multiple misplays. Sure. Is still lethal. There's crop rotation for Dark Depths. Dark Depths does the thing. Now I path this. We win the game, but that was very sloppy on my end. I am unhappy with how I played that one. And we do end up with a positive record for this league. All right. So, what did we learn today? And what are our overall thoughts on our deck list here? The Warden is not an embarrassing card, and I think I put together a decent shell for it. I have the ability of stacking +1/+1 counters on this in ways outside of just its own slow-ish end-of-turn ability. The Endure can generate extra creatures, which matters for Guide of Souls, and if I make those spirit tokens, they can be doubled via Ocelot Pride. This is a good synergistic home for this deck. But what was the reality of play like? The reality of play was that either my opponent's deck was too fast and the slow scaling that Warden provided was irrelevant, or my opponent's deck was graveyard oriented and it just made sense to board in Endurance, and if I board in Endurance, the weakest slot in the deck is probably Warden of the Grove. Sometimes it's Gearhulk for being too slow, sometimes it might be something like this for being too slow. But the reality of the situation was that Endurance was just better than Warden of the Grove in most of the matchups. So, did I succeed in making a good Warden of the Grove deck? Yeah, I think this is about the best of what you can do, given that card's abilities. But did that card pass the bar of legacy playability here? If we see a slight depowering of legacy, so let's imagine at the end of the month, it's not just something from Oops that goes, but something from Oops goes, something from Reanimator goes. Maybe they clean house, we get rid of some things like the One Ring and Nadu as well. If there is a depowering of legacy, I think Warden of the Grove legitimately could be worth revisiting. This shell is strong, and I think the question at that point is, would this be better than the existing Boros energy deck that has the capabilities of just playing Ajani that is lower to the ground, and then Goblin Bombardment that can instantly provide reach, as well as potentially Flage, so you can use your graveyard for a little bit of value. And the question there is, I don't know whether or not that would actually be better, but when you have like Scythecat Cub's ability to double counters and Warden of the Grove, potentially making all of your creatures super thick, like, there is some good deck building here. So David, hopefully this gives you a good point to jump off from as far as your own brewing goes. Some individual questions I still have left. Was the Dryad Arbor good? I don't think I ever green sunned it out. I did fetch it to gain some life and trigger Guide of Souls at one point, so that was something. Can this deck get away with playing something like a Gaia's Cradle? I don't think so. You could play a Cradle over the Singleton Wasteland and maybe it's fine. But not being able to play Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride on one definitely matters. And the single-colored lands are sometimes awkward with wanting to multi-spell. Otherwise, things on the sideboard felt pretty good. The Singleton Deafening Silence is a little weird if you can't lean on it. Maybe that should be just something else that is better as a singleton, like Green Sun target, like a some sort of disenchant effect on a creature. The werewolf flippy guy, whose name I am totally blanking on right now. Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it there for the day, folks. I hope that was enjoyable, despite the fact that Warden of the Grove didn't pop off too many times. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!